he is an alumni of CBIT IT department, 2019 batch. So today he is going to give a talk on very interesting topic, which is resume building, internship, project, job prospects, and master. So over to you, Jagannath.
Thank you so much, ma'am. FIA, ma'am was my big data professor back in 2018. So yeah, I'm going to start sharing my screen.
All of you just wait. He is joining in a minute. Okay, some network issue he had. So just wait. He's joining. Jagannath, you are not audible, Jagannath. Unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you can share your screen. Yeah.
Now, okay. Right. So I'm just going to be talking about for about say 10 to 15 minutes, and then I'll leave it for Q&A so that you guys can interact with me. I just want to make this as interactive as possible. First, I would like just give a brief overview of what I've done. So 2015, I joined CBIT. The same year, I co-founded the photography club. And then 2016, I did a couple of voluntary stuff. 2017 was really when I started getting into the core IT and CS world. The first thing that we tackled was the Smart India Hackathon. We were finalists in that. And this is when I really understood that what we are learning in college and what how software is built outside is completely different. And then did a couple more non-academic stuff. And 2018 was a very eventful year. Did a couple of internships, got placement offers, and attended a few more hackathons like JPMC, Code for Good, Smart India Hackathon. 2019, which was like my final year, I started applying for masters and got admits from CMU, Penn State, NU, UPIT, and sunny Buffalo. I finally chose to do my master's at Carnegie Mellon in software engineering and scalable systems. So just giving you an overview so that you guys can ask me questions about these, or in case you're planning to have any one of these things. So first thing I would like to dive into is, since ma'am said you guys are in third and fifth semester, so that's like second and third year. So projects. So the thing about projects is I think IT department still has the mini project concept. I'm not still sure, but even if it doesn't, make sure you do at least one good project per semester. And like you can see on the side, no library management systems or those usual projects which you can just copy code from a website and just put it there. Why do we need to do projects is you learn a lot of subjects, and it's a great place to put these skills into use and building an end-to-end product and actually understand how what we're learning is being used, like how to design databases, how to design interfaces with servers, how to use the programming language concepts. And these are great talking points during interviews. Like you guys won't believe when I say almost 60% of my interviews, we spoke about the projects that I had built and like what I achieved in that, what I learned from those. So it's really a good talking point, and you can explain what were your struggles during the projects and what you have taken away from it. And it's always nice to add it on resume, because you're just not a student who just studies and gets good marks, but also tries experimenting and experimenting things, and you can add them on your resume and it'll look better. So how is the, like, where do you find these projects? So one, if it's part of your curriculum, that's great. But you can imagine trying collaborating with faculty, because a lot of our faculty work on interesting projects, writing papers. So you can go talk to your faculty and see what they're working on and if they need any help. And best case, you would also get a mention in the paper they're writing, or you guys can experiment something. Collaborate with other students, maybe even seniors. Like back when I was studying, there were a lot of seniors who were interested in working on different things. So you can go and talk to your seniors and say, hey, yeah, this is what I want to work on, and you can get a few ideas. So when is you should probably do one in each semester, and make sure they're end to end and there's something you can you've done it by yourself. Like it doesn't have to be the most fanciest one, but if you've done every part of it by yourself, you can easily explain it in an interview or any other setup. So the second thing you guys should be focusing is on internships. One is good, two is great, three is amazing. And like I said, there's a like the first time I went to a hackathon, we fell back really bad because we didn't know how software was built. Like back in college, it was just reading textbooks and writing small programs, executing and writing exams. But when we went out there and they said, "Hey, this is the problem we have, and you guys have to solve it," we were stuck. We didn't really know how to do, and that's when we realized that there's this huge gap. And I hope that gap is smaller now because I think the curriculum keeps getting updated with more real world stuff. And it's also a great place to understand if you like a particular domain. Like you usually go in a team of 4 to 6 and you take up one or the other domain, like be it the front end, back end, or the database design. And this is a great time to explore your interests and see if you'll actually like it, because the stakes are real here. Like you could win a very good prize, or you could even get a full-time offer. Another thing is companies like JP Morgan have these hackathons where if you do really good, they'll give you a full-time offer. And this is much, much better than going through the rigorous technical interview process. And yeah, so how do you get internships is a good question. So the first option is when you sit for your placements, there will be companies that offer you internships first, and then based on your performance, they'll give you a full-time placement. If you do not find such companies, you can go to websites like angel.co, which is like the LinkedIn for startups. That's where I found my internship. Like I'm into photography, so I just searched for photos, images, startups, and I interned with this company called Skylark Drones, which is a drone-based startup in Bangalore. And I had a lot of fun because it was dealing with drone data, capturing the data and presenting it to the clients. And it was a lot of fun. So you guys should like try and explore where you can combine your interests and your professional stuff. LinkedIn is something you all probably know, and Indeed. All of these websites are great to find internships, and startups are definitely looking for people who can contribute, or you can even contribute to open source. So I hope you guys know what open source is. When you go to GitHub, there are a few projects which have very loose license requirements, meaning you can just take a copy of it and run it without paying for it. So these open source softwares always look for people who can contribute to them, and that's an excellent way to get your foot into the real world. And yeah, ideally you can do it right after your end of your third year, or you will have it on your final semester, which is like eight semester. So you should definitely be on the lookout for internships, because just getting a degree is not going to get you so far ahead. Having 2 internships right before I graduated was very beneficial for me, because that equated to almost 8 months of work experience, even though not full time. And I got a good understanding of what I really want to do in masters. I think this was one thing that really helped me like understand which domain I would enjoy being in as a full time engineer. The third one is, of course, full time jobs. Like I said, do not write off startups just because they're small or they do not offer a lot of perks. Startups are great because you will get a lot of work. I mean, in a big size company, you would be 1 in 10,000. Not saying that big size companies are bad; they all have their own pros and cons. But startups, you would be like in my current company, I'm one of 4 engineers, and we sit and get to decide what we're building and how to build it. And I think that's a great responsibility to have. It's scary at times, but it's also really fun. Yeah, but make sure you have your basics really strong, and also aim for product-based companies. Product-based companies are the companies that create a product and sell it. Like it's their own product and they sell it to clients, as compared to other companies which offer consulting to other companies. So basics of networking is definitely required, like TCP, UDP, what's the difference, uh, and then DBMS is like core, like SQL, how databases work, what are the different type of databases, how do you write a query, joins, and all of those stuff. Oops is the foundation for any coding. And the other thing which really sets you apart from any other average engineer is competitive coding, hacker rank, hacker earth, lead code. If you're good at this, you can crack really well paying good company jobs. And it might seem very daunting at first, like you might be thinking, there's no way I can crack this problem, but practice and just do at least one sum per day. It's like, it's a habit, it's a loop that you need to be in to understand those competitive coding, because these are quite important. Like a company cannot know your caliber without actually working with you. So they use coding challenges to understand your how you use logic and how you code, and these are quite vital. You might not like them, but they are one of the key to getting a better job. And also understanding how software engineering works. Like being an engineer is just not writing code. It's basically from idea to execution, and there's a lot in between these two. Like you need to understand why you're building what you're building, and there's like a lot of other constraints. There are like business constraints, there's cost constraints, there's infrastructure constraints. And trust me, in your full-time job, you wouldn't be doing 100% coding. Coding would be like, say, 40 to 50% max. And the other time you have to spend understanding what this component is for. You have to talk to people, get their feedback, do code reviews. So this is something you might not experience it in a college setting. And like I said, hackathons are a great way to understand software engineering. Yeah, so software engineering as a process is very important to understand. The last one, and not so important one, is system design. These are mostly for experienced people, but understanding this will be a good thing to have. It's basically how you design systems. So when I say design a WhatsApp system, you might be thinking, okay, you need one server, 4 databases, and bringing all of those together is a good sense to have. But this is like a nice to have. It's not a must have system design. So and the bigger question you might be starting to ask, or you'd be starting to ask in a few semesters, is further studies. Do I stay back and do a job, or do I go for my master's? And I've seen a lot of students struggling to answer this question. And honestly, this is a very personal choice. Like it depends on a lot of factors, like your financial background, because masters is a quite expensive affair, like at least in the US. And then how interested are you to dive into a specific domain? Like, do you really know what you want to dive into? Like, do you want to be a system specialist? Do you want to be an AI ML specialist? So unless you know what you want to specialize in, it might not be a good idea to just jump right into it. And then it also depends on your lifestyle. Like, are you ready to experience a cultural change? Because moving from India to a different country is a whole new game, and some people adjust to it and some do not. So you might have to think about what kind of a lifestyle you're looking for. And the last thing is experience. Like, do you have enough experience to uh, get into that specific domain? Like, you can get into a domain without even experience, but do you really understand what's in it? Like, you wouldn't want to spend 2 years on something that you might not enjoy doing for the next, say, 5 or 10 years. So yeah, the pros of doing masters is these colleges are like really good, and people from all over the world come here, so you have a different perspective from what you have in your college. And the job markets there pay really well. I mean, in India also they pay well, but they pay much better there. And the cons would include cultural change, like I mentioned, and coursework can get quite stressful. So having said that, no matter what you're choosing to do, like even if it is a internship, full-time job, or masters, the key to all of this is a good resume. And your resume is really your question paper. You're literally handing your question paper to your to whomever you're talking to, and you should make sure this is very well maintained, and make sure it's only one page. I've seen a lot of students write pages and pages, like 4 to 5, and ideally, whenever a recruiter or someone is looking at your resume, they'll only glance for 30 seconds. So if you have only one page of information, it would be nice for them to understand what you're doing. And the second thing is using numbers and facts to present. So say you worked at an internship, you could say reduced the cost of this system by 30%. That is a great point to have, because uh, they know that what impact you have done to the company, instead of saying, yeah, I worked on this algorithm, and they really don't know what impact that has done. So a lot of times HRs and other non-technical recruiters, they look for these numbers on your resume, because they don't really know the jargon. So if you say, I developed a server in Node.js, they don't really understand this, but you say, I reduced the response time by 40%, then be like, oh, that's really nice. So make sure that you include these numbers and facts, and use action verbs, just not saying worked on. You can just keep changing, experimented, developed, deployed. And this is something that I had to learn the hard way. Keep only things that you can talk about. Like, I wasn't really good at C++, and I put C++ there. I was like, okay, who's going to care? And that backfired a lot. So make sure that the information present on your resume is only things that you can talk about, and never ever lie on your resume. Like, if you haven't touched that particular skill, or haven't done that particular internship, do not put it there. This can be a huge red flag. So make sure you have a resume and keep updating it, and make sure you have an online presence on LinkedIn, and you start networking as well. Yeah, so I just wanted to give a brief intro, but I wanted to learn more about you. Like, what it's been quite some time since I've like spoken to students, like a couple of years, I suppose. So I thought I would give the chance to you for to ask me any questions you have. So you can either chat, enter it in the chat. Is that fine, ma'am? Uh, yeah, I see someone has already raised that hand. Okay.
Yes, Jagannath, there is a message posted in the chat box saying that to post any queries if they have any in the chat section, so that, yeah, we'll read it out.
Yep. So yeah, you guys can just post your messages over here in case you have any doubts on what to work
Yeah,
on.
students, if you have any queries to ask Jagannath, you please post them in the chat section.
I see someone has raised it. Prajwal, you can go ahead and post your message in the group, or I think you can unmute and ask the question. Interesting. Is everyone tired from college, or?
Actually, they have so many doubts. I don't know why they are not asking, like how to do projects, how to choose many project topics. Like, they ask every time.
Please feel free. Yeah,
Yes,
I would love
students,
to answer.
yeah, even if you hesitate to post them in the chat section, you can as well unmute yourself and ask the query.
Yeah, you can unmute yourself.
So I see a question from Vishal. You said you worked on certain projects. Can you speak about what projects? Okay. So the first project I think that I worked on was bus tracking Android app. One of the things that early morning you get up and you don't know where the bus is, and you're like, you call up your friends, you call up the driver, and you're like, hey, where's the bus? But then we thought, okay, let's solve this problem. Like, this is something almost every student faces. So we worked on that project. That was one of that. And the second one, and the one that I really like, is to understand depressive patterns from WhatsApp chats. So that was an advanced project that I really like working on. So we took a few sample chats and tried to train the algorithm to understand the context of the messages to see if they're depressed and maybe like ask for additional help. So worked on projects that I face on a day-to-day basis. It always doesn't have to be that. It can be something simple as well, like making a clone of, let's say, LinkedIn or Netflix. So I really understand what is really going on behind the scenes of that particular system. So any project that really makes you understand the end-to-end flow rather than just doing something, just copying it off the internet, because I've seen a lot of my batchmates also do that. So it's just, hey. Can you tell me more about hackathons? What skills are required to going to the first hackathon? Great question. What skills are required is basically you really need to be interested, and I think one of the main skills is being a team player, because in your exams you're all by yourself, and a hackathon is really a team game. So the first skill really is to communicate well in a team, and then bringing something to the table. Like you could be good at making front end screens, or you could be good at designing databases. So pick one of your interests, or you could be a full stack engineer. So you whatever you've learned in your current curriculum, you can just implement one of them and gain that particular skill. Like if you think of front end, there's like React, Vue, like learn one of those things. Back end, there's like Python, Java, or Node. You can learn one of those. So any system will always have a front end, a back end, and a database. That's like the three basic components of any system. So if you're good with any one of those, or all three of those, I think you're good to go for a hackathon. And even more than that, even more than like building something, like understanding requirements. Like if they say, okay, this is the problem you're facing, you need to be able to split it down, break down into tiny chunks and understand the problem you're solving. And then you can't just go and say, okay, I'm going to start coding. That's not how hackathons work. You really need to understand what you're trying to build. So maybe just start by reading some problems. It's like, okay, just put yourselves into like the designer of Google Meets. Like how did they come up with this idea, and what requirements, and then how they built it. So communication, team player, any skills in back end, front end, and understanding how systems are built. I think those are the skills required to do for your first hackathon. When you started your internship, how did you maintain a work-life balance? Well, internships are more or less super chill. Like the first internship I did was in Bangalore in 2018. And I had to fly to Bangalore, and I spent like 8 weeks over there. It was a 2-month internship. And it wasn't really necessary for me to actively think about work-life balance like you would do in a full-time job, because I used to work for like say 7 or 8 hours and then come back to my room and then order some food. So I don't think you really have to worry about work-life balance and internships, but drawing a line between your personal life and your professional life usually helps, irrespective of what kind of work you're doing. And I understand with work from home and all of the new norms, it's quite different. So my experience might not be relevant to you because I was working in person. Can you suggest some tips to enhance our coding skills, especially competitive ones? Okay, great question. So competitive coding is all about analyzing patterns. So if you go into HackerRank, LeetCode, or HackerEarth, all of these will boil down to specific patterns, and these start with the basic things, data structures. So having a very, very strong foundation in data structures is super important. Like, what is an array? Why would you use an array? Like, what makes why is it better to use an array instead of a linked list in this situation? If you're able to answer these questions, I think you're at a great start. So you can start by getting very strong at the basics of data structures and algorithms. I think you'd have a class called DSA, and there are like, let's say like 13 to 15 patterns which all of these boil down to. Like any question will boil down to one of these patterns. So start off by making sure that your basics are strong, and when you read the question, ask yourself, okay, what data structure should I really use in this, and why would I be using this instead of why? Like, what advantages it giving in this problem? Like, is it giving me a time advantage? Is it giving me a space advantage? And then once you start doing more problems, you'll analyze that everything like becomes a pattern. It's like, oh yeah, I saw this problem and you could solve it. Like, is it a breadth first search, or is it a depth first search? Is it a max heap, min heap? And I think really the key here is consistency. Like, like I think this is something like everyone realizes at some point is more than intelligent people, like consistent people are the ones who like make it big. Like, you don't have to be like really smart to like be become like the best coder or the best engineer. Consistency and discipline really matters, and if even if you do just like one problem a day, that's great. Like, you just need to be in that loop of like you need to train your brain in a way to think about these problems logically. So start off like with simple problems and make sure you do at least one a day, and by the time it comes to the real full-time job coding interviews, you'd be really prepared for it. Like, do not cram it into that last 6 months. Okay, you have like a placements in 6 months. Don't say that you're going to start like it's 3 months down the lane and you're going to finish off 200 problems. That's not how it's going to be. You need to constantly keep doing it. It's like working out. It's like once you stop working out, you can't. You'll start gaining weight. It's similar to that. You have to constantly keep working out to maintain your shape. So make sure, even if it's the simplest problem, do at least one problem a day and get your basics right. Can you please tell your exam journey towards foreign studies? Like, did you write any exams like GRE, and what's the preparation phase? Okay, so I had to write GRE and TOEFL for applying. I believe a lot of colleges have relaxed the restriction of GRE. So preparation for GRE was a bit difficult. I wouldn't say very difficult, especially the English part. Like, maths is basic high school math, but they try to trap you into these answers which you think are right. So it's more really like a game of it's like MSET. I think most of you have written MSET. It You have to be very quick. Like, there will be 80 questions in 60 minutes, and English is something that's quite difficult. At least it was for me. Some people find math easy and English difficult. Some people find English easy and math difficult. But it took me around 6 months preparation for GRE, and once I gave my GRE, TOEFL was really simple. I just had to prepare for 3 days to understand the pattern of the exam and just give it, and that was easy. But more than the exams, the tougher part was writing SOPs and getting NORs. Like, SOP is really your key to any application. It explains why you want to do this masters and what are you going to bring to the table. So make sure you work on that. I worked for about 6 months on my SOP and another 2 months on my NORs, and they probably really help. So if you're planning to do your masters, make sure start preparing like a year ahead. That time really helps. Like, I've seen a lot of students just trying to do everything in the last minute and give a mediocre job. So make sure you give yourself enough time. Like, you can give GRE any number of times. So 2 or 3 is fine. So go with the mindset that even if it's not this time, I can give it again, and that will take some stress off you. So SOPs and GREs. Who did you get an opportunity to work as a research assistant? So my research assistant was with Carnegie Mellon University, specifically human-computer interaction. So this is a department that works on components that like interact with humans, like any interfaces, games, like VR headsets and stuff. So my work was not very much related to like the interaction stuff, more of the software engineering stuff. So they were building a add-on Twitch extension that would let users, people who are watching the live stream of a game, control some aspects of the game. So they needed a backend server that could interact between the client and user in real time. So I had to design a system for that. And so whenever you go for your masters, every college will have like a portal which has jobs like TAs, RAs, teaching assistantship, research assistantship, and other jobs. And you can just pick any of the ones that you like, or you can even talk to your professors if they're working. Uh, so yeah, uh, you can go and search in that portal. That's how I found the RA that I work. How to manage time? I mean, you will be having many projects, have to prepare for examinations and internship training classes. Yeah, so time management is something that's very critical. Something that really helped me was to note down the things that I have to do. Like sometimes it might get quite overwhelming with the amount of things that you have to do, but now is really the time that you can make or break your life. And this is real. Like I know you might have heard this from your faculty a lot of times, and you were like, "Oh, not this again." But undergrad is really the time that you can turn around your life. Not that if you don't, you're lost, but so what really helped me was make a list of things like short-term things and then long-term things, things that you have to do on a daily basis. I used to have a whiteboard in my house where I used to like note down all of these. Like when you have it written somewhere physically or on like a digital to-do list, you know that it is there and you can go and execute that. And yeah, you basically have to keep a schedule or make have everything written down in the form of a list and do it. Yeah, time management is critical. Yeah. Do you think recruitment is based to bias to certain fields? I heard that it's easy getting a web dev job rather than a data science job in India. That is an interesting question. I haven't heard of anything as such, but my guess is that it also depends on the type of companies that are there. Like in India, there are a lot more of the process of it. Is to fly a drone over the train tracks, and we used to get the feed. And I had to build an interface which would add value to it. Like just giving the video to the client wouldn't help. So I developed features around this, and it mainly included JavaScript, Vue, and Python. So these were the three languages and skill tools that I had used in my first internship. I basically my end product was I built a web UI, which would display the video from the drone and a few more features added to it. My second internship at GE Appliances was more DevOps and infrastructure related. I automated a lot of processes. Like they used to do manual data migration. Like they used to get data from a third-party company and then they loaded it to their database, and this used to take like say 6 or 7 hours. But then I automated all of this using AWS services, and it came down to say 1 hour. So I used a lot of AWS services there and Python. So AWS and Python in my second internship. And I didn't know most of it when I entered the internship. So I think if that's what you're asking, like I didn't know what AWS was before I entered the internship. They will teach you on the job and you will pick it up. So don't be afraid to apply for internships which have requirements. They do not expect you to know it all, but they just expect you to be someone who can pick up skills quickly and understand how things work. You mentioned that MS coursework is stressful. Can you elaborate on what aspects of MS are stressful? Well, I guess almost everything, because from the moment you enter for your master's, you will have to start applying for internships. My program was 16 months, so I think that was more stressful than other programs. So when I entered in August, in September we had a career fair and we had to like prepare, uh, and then we had courseworks that went for like 80 hours a week. Like the assignments are quite different from what we use over here. They're more practical based, and you'll have to do you'll have to submit all of them online, and they're quite difficult. And it's not like you can just use someone else's work and say, hey, I finished this. They have anti-plagiarism systems, and they can check if you have like copied from others. So you actually have to do it to it. So that can get quite stressful. And also the mental stress of being away from your family and experiencing a whole lot of different things that can also add to the stress. And because a lot of things are at stake here, you put in a lot of money over here, you need to get a job. So that all of those add up and they become quite stressful. What were the mistakes you've committed during your college days, like choosing the wrong specialization or missed a few concepts that needed to be covered? Or if you did, how did you cope up with it? Okay, that's actually a very good question. I think one of the biggest mistakes I've done is to not take competitive coding seriously. Like I realized it very late that just having a few internships and going for full-time jobs is not enough. I did struggle a lot with like answering like the competitive coding questions. So if I had to do it again, I guess I'd be focusing more on doing things, starting things earlier than trying to cram everything in the final stage. How did I cope up with it? I had sleepless nights. I had to understand 6 months worth of content in say 6 days, which I would not recommend for anyone. So make sure you start early with whatever you want to do. Then when is the correct time to prepare for GRE? So I would say end of starting of third year, or just end of third year, or even end of second year is great. The reason I say this is you do not need any additional skills from your current college to give a GRE, and preparing for GRE can be quite time consuming, and the score is valid for 3 years. So sooner you give it, it is off your plate. Like if you finish it off in end of second year or just beginning of third year, you can just forget about this exam and you can focus on the more important stuff like SOP. So I think giving it in the starting of third year would be great. I kind of gave it in the end of third year and had to juggle between internships, exams, and this. So that's another thing I would have done different if I had the chance. Did you do any certification courses during your college days? If yes, what's the advanced level of what you learned? I don't remember doing any certifications. No. I rather did projects based on whatever I had learned. So certifications can be a hit or miss. There are a few institutions or like online websites. They're like, okay, pay us and then we'll teach you so and so, and then you get a certificate. And I really don't believe they're going to add any value. And certifications don't really add much value. I personally, I would rather do a full project on that and understand it myself than do a certification. Like I don't think they add value at this stage. Like professionally, they definitely do. Like if you're like working in the industry for a couple of years and then you have a few AWS certifications, then it definitely helps. In college, it doesn't as much. Can we learn certain things that will be useful for those aren't part of these aids and exit internships? Of course, yeah. Just relying on your college knowledge is not enough. Like, I had learned so much from outside. Like in second year, I think I started learning Python. I think Python is part of the syllabus right now, but it wasn't back then. So, trying to just get a gauge of what the current trends are. Like, you can talk to your seniors and understand what they're doing. Like, cloud is super hot right now. Like, understanding how cloud computing works, what are like the basics. You should definitely learn things outside of your college. And if you just learn whatever you're taught in those 8 semesters, I don't think you'll be a good enough engineer. So make sure that you just talk to your seniors or understand what the outside world, what is really going on right now, and you can pick up a few skills along the way and add it to your resume. From where did you do your GRE preparation? So initially, I joined one of those. I guess it was Manhattan or whatever the other one was, but I didn't really feel like I was learning anything, and I just bought the official materials. Manhattan review, the fat book of math, and just started preparing on my own. I think self preparation is the best preparation. The only good information I got from them was uh, what is the pattern of the exam and other things, which I could have also learned from the internet. And I don't really think a GRE preparation institute is required, and self study is the best way to go.
Yeah, let us wait, Jagannath, till someone posts the
Yeah,
question.
sure.
Yeah. In their curriculum, they do have all 4 mini projects like what your batch is also having. And in addition, this R20 curriculum, it is enriched with internships also. There is a provision for awarding credits if they do the internship. That is mandatory actually, as per as the internship policy. It is made
That's
mandatory for the students to do the internships. And
in which semester?
in before the start of third semester or during the third semester, they can do the internship. Yeah, if not
And
internship, but they can as well do the some training and some MOOCs course like from NPTEL also they can do some certification course. But options are there. And again, after second year, before the start of third year also they can do an internship. And finally, in the 8th semester, they have the option of choosing the internship for the entire semester so that they need not attend classes physically.
oh, that's nice. I think our batch was the first to like introduce that, and we had a lot of problem trying to get
Yeah.
permission and stuff.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
And yeah, regarding these 4 mini projects which the students have to do during mm, uh, from the second year to the end of third year. It means third semester to fourth semester. No, sixth semester. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth semesters they have the internships. Okay, so what projects do you suggest? What tools, what technologies you suggest the students to work on?
So I think one thing, whatever they're building, I think focusing on cloud is something that's quite important, because any internship or any full-time like job I'm doing right now, like the focus on cloud is intense, like understanding which services to use when and how to deploy what. But then that's again like the deployment phase. But really like building anything end to end that you fully understand would be really nice. Like you could, there are like a lot of like building clones is a great way to start. Like a lot of people do that. So build a clone of Twitter, build a clone of LinkedIn, or build a clone of Netflix. And if you understand everything end to end about what that how that product works, and actually deploy it as a working thing, that's a great project to do, because that covers like every aspect, like how is the data stored in the database, how what is the presentation here, how is the data process, authentication. So it covers many aspects, and because this is a team project, they can like split up this work and do it. So clones are one thing, and the other thing is you should probably also encourage working with professors on their paperworks and other things. So like I remember Kartika ma'am was working on something, and I didn't really have the chance, but we could have contributed to that as well. And yeah, I guess those are some interesting projects that they can work on, or you could just look up online. But when you look up online, you get a lot of these generic projects.
Yeah, Jagannath, as you were saying that they can work with cloud right now. On cloud they can work. So actually we have some like tie up with AWS actually.
That's awesome.
Okay, so we are offering now AWS cloud practitioner, as well as like that is the basic thing with what we are offering now. So AWS cloud practitioner, and after that they can go ahead with the solution architect part also. It's totally their wish, right?
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah. So, like, can they do this thing in their second year? My question is that, like, I have done that practitioner part. So, I think these people can do in their second year. What I think, like, nothing much to understand in that, right?
Well, if I remember correctly, practitioner is just like the basic introduction to
Yeah,
AWS.
yeah,
They
yeah. So,
explain.
as you were saying about the services, so they can opt in their second year itself, right?
Yeah. I think practitioner second year is
Yeah.
is
And for the
definitely.
solution architect, obviously, in their third year, they can finish that.
Yeah, they'll have to wait for a solution architect to like really understand why and where
Mm-hmm.
they have to use each. I think there's also cloud computing course that we offer in third year, I guess third year, second semester. I remember.
That is a totally theoretical part, Jagannath. So what I'm asking is, can they do in their second year?
Practitioners, yes. Architect, no. I think they
No.
would require a deeper
Okay.
understanding of
Yeah, it's totally
why they're
like
doing
their wish, right? After second year, what they feel.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if they feel confident that they can go ahead, that's even better. But
And one
ideally,
more
IT
thing,
understanding.
like they have doubts, and they have a doubt, like in their mini project. Suppose they are starting in their third semester. Okay, so in the third semester, as you say, the same thing I told them, like no library management, no hospital management, nothing like that. So, like they can start with the paperwork itself, right, in their second year itself. So that the same thing they can implement in their third year and final year. What is your opinion in that?
I think that's a good way because this also
Yeah.
reflects like the real world
Mhm.
way of doing software, where first you decide what to build, and then in
Mm.
the next coming semesters you actually build it. So
Yes,
spending
exactly.
some time on deciding what to build and how to build it would be a great way to start.
Yeah, yes, yes. So, students, do you have any doubts regarding your mini project or anything you can ask now? Unmute yourself.
I see another question from today. First internship, can you explain? So by first internship, I meant like the very first internship that I did, which was end of sixth semester. That is like end of third year, like during the summer break between third and fourth year, is when I did my first internship.
Yes, Jagannath, meanwhile, we get a question. Now there are so many languages and the students are confused to about which language they have to, they should have the command. So what do you suggest? Which is most predominantly used in the industry, from the industry perspective?
Okay, I would say start with one object-oriented language, like a strongly compiled language like Java or C++, and have one type language like JavaScript or Python. Like once you understand how these two things work, like one of them is compiled, one of them is interpreted, one of them is statically typed, one of them is dynamically typed. Once you have a strong base in say Java and JavaScript, picking up other types of languages is very simple. Like uh, people don't expect you to know every language, but like when I had given my interviews, they said like they were using different languages like Kotlin or Scala, and they said it's fine if you don't know these languages, but if you know Java, you can easily pick up these languages. So mostly everything originates from one of these golden languages: C, C++, Java, Python, JavaScript. So I think if you're good with Java, JavaScript, and Python, you can pick up any other language easily. So learning those three, and Java is widely used in the industry along with Python, and anything web related is always JavaScript and Python. So those three is what I would recommend. How did I land my first internship? So my first internship, like I said, I went on this website called angel.co. It's called Angels List. It's like a LinkedIn for startups. And like I said, I was interested in photography back then. I was like, okay, let me just search if there are like any photography image-based startups. And I found this. And when I sent my application, they sent me a technical challenge. It had to do with plotting some points on Google Earth using Python. I really didn't know Python back then, so and they had given me like a 2 week time, and I just picked up Python because it was quite similar to what we were learning, like C, C++. Like programming fundamentals are always the same. It's mostly like the syntactical difference that matters. And then I finished that technical work and I sent it back for review. And then I had a call with them and we discussed how I came up with the solution and what would I have done better if I had more time and things like this. And we also even spoke about the hackathons and stuff. And then they were quite happy with it. And that's when they offered me an internship there. Is internship compulsory is not something that I can answer. I think the faculty can answer that. And I think it is compulsory in the fine semester at least. Prerequisites for getting your first internship, it was really interest. Like if you show enough interest and you could do it, like I said, Python was one of the prerequisite and it's something that you can pick it up quite simple. So I had to learn Python and JavaScript. Those were the two things. But JavaScript I picked it up during the internship and Python right before the internship.
Yeah, Jagannath, you did not answer that question. Yeah, this session is meant for the students who wants to learn and who have to achieve something in their career, and not for the students who believe in all gossips.
Regarding
Other questions?
Yeah, we can see a lot of ready-made stuff available in the web. Is it okay to blindly copy and paste them? Bad place to ask this question, and I've been like telling this quite some time. Like I've seen a lot of my cohort students do the same. And if you really can't come up with an idea, just understand what the idea and implement it by yourself. Like trust me, like it might seem like it's the easiest option to just blindly copy and paste it and get marks. And yes, you'll definitely get marks and you'll pass and you'll get your grades. But none of this is going to prepare you for the real world. And you learn it the hard way. And even if you feel like you're out of ideas, whatever idea that ready-made thing is available, make sure you implement it by yourself. Like be honest with yourself. Like if you really want to achieve something, just make sure that you do it, even if it's like the smallest thing. Every line of code you need to understand how it works. Otherwise there's no point of this. Like you're spending so much time, so much money on this. You would rather learn something from this than just take it from elsewhere. And choosing a good theme, I'm pretty sure your professors can help you. Like even when you go online, you can get an idea of the project. Like even if it's an implemented project, you can be like, okay, I'm going to re-implement this or maybe do one part of it better. Like if they're doing, take one part of it and say, okay, if they have done it in Python, I'm going to implement it in JavaScript and I'm going to make this part better. So you can like, you don't have to like make the exact clone of it, but you can improve things that were already built. What do you prefer, learning and then working or working and learning? This again comes down to personal preference. Like I was the kind of person who would probably become complacent once I get a job and started earning. So this is definitely like my personal opinion. So if I had worked there, I would have probably not thought of masters. So I was like, I can't get lazy now, so I take up masters. And I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted to work on. I enjoy working with cloud stuff and backend stuff. So I thought, why not?
Yeah, thank you, Jagannath. I think it's done for today. Thank you very much for readily accepting our request for interacting with our students. And whenever we want, you are always reachable. Thanks for that.
Yes, and I will post my LinkedIn profile on
Sure.
the chat. You can add me, and please do not leave me at hi. Post your question, whatever you want, because I've seen a lot of students do that. They'll be like hi, and they wait for me to reply. I say, please ask the question, and I will definitely try and reply.
Yeah, students, please note down the LinkedIn URL of Jagannath. And if you have any queries regarding masters or regarding internships, you can always approach him. Yeah, there is one last question.
Can you also make ML projects like Flask based? Of course, yeah. ML projects are great. Make sure you have the right data set and you understand what information that you're trying to get out of it. And then ML projects with Flask are also great. Can we choose the topic of many projects every time, same topic, so that we can base in one topic? But I'm not very sure. By topic, do you mean domain? Then I guess you could, like, you could do ML projects all 3 semesters. But I would strongly suggest same technology. But I would strongly suggest keep changing the technology so that you understand if you like it or not like it, which will help you decide what you want to do in your full time or specialize in your master. So changing the technology will greatly help you understand how everything works.
Yeah, as the questions are over, shall we stop, Jagannath?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have a great day. And wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jagannath.
Yeah, thank you, Kritika.
हाँ मैम
चलो